after I think what 6 years, I'm joined by Shobu sir because last time we did an interview that was with uh Kiravani sir and of course Rajamouli sir together as well for the Bahubali premiere here in London. But here we are many years later. So thank you so much, Shobu sir, for joining me on Filmation Me.
Very happy to be here. Glad to be here. Yeah,
Wonderful. Okay, so Shobu sir, I think I'm gonna address the elephant in the room, the film that everyone has been talking about across the globe.
right,
You've obviously professionally, in a professional capacity, you've not been linked to the film, you've not worked on the film, but yet
right,
you're very close. You have very close knit relationships with people who have worked on it, and that is of course RRR.
right.
Um, Obviously the film has been making huge global waves. Obviously I'm sure you've seen the Oscar announcements as well,
Of,
where it's
of
been.
course.
So what does the global phenomenon of RRR actually mean for Indian cinema, first of all?
Okay. There are multiple things, but one is the success of RRR, which is really a very hardcore commercial mainstream cinema from India, and being appreciated in the Western audience and celebrated, and winning multiple awards. Not only awards, but also being celebrated by the regular audience. I think means that the West has become a little more open to viewing films from across the globe, from India and from other countries around Asia, be it Korea, multiple countries. And also what it means is that the success of RRR specifically opens up bigger markets for future films, which can attempt to cross and make a presence felt in the Western markets. It's not easy. It's not like because it's done it can be repeated, but it gives opens up to the possibility. There is a possibility that this can be followed by further films being able to make a dent, at least a small dent in the global box office, especially US, in the mainstream, in the non-Indian diaspora market. I'm talking about. That's one thing, and the second is the Western audience looking towards India, be it for talent or just new films to explore and enjoy. I think this brings focus to Indian films and basically, wider access to Indian films.
Right. Now, I think it's very interesting because you have produced two of Rajamouli's big films, actually. One was obviously Maryada Ramanna, which I
Yes,
think released in 2010. Then, of
right,
course, Bahubali,
right,
which I'm sure, I mean, everyone pretty much now is aware of. You've seen him evolve as a
right,
filmmaker. So
right,
when you see a film like this, to perhaps the film that you backed in 2010,
right.
how has he evolved as a filmmaker, do you think?
Okay. No, there is a huge evolution, and I think it started with Iga. Maryada Ramana I produced, but the film that really got his presence felt, which got him noticed in the international circuits, especially in the festival circuits, was Iga. The Fly, and I think that's where people who are hardcore film lovers, the very, very small but very hardcore film lovers, film buffs, the Fantastic Fests and such very genre festivals. He was noticed, and then people started looking and talking about that film, and then of course Bahubali happened. Bahubali got him. Bahubali 1 and then Bahubali 2. We got a certain level of penetration in terms of global markets, especially Japan. We were able to make a dent in Japan, and US we couldn't make a significant. I mean, the box office was terrific, but it was primarily the Indian diaspora. So when I say we didn't make an impact, it was the non-Indian diaspora that we couldn't make an impact. And then of course RRR was able to penetrate deeper for various reasons. That is the evolution of the box office and penetration and building of audience for Rajamouli's films. But as a director himself, I think his craft and his storytelling have gone systematically, linearly, one step above, one step above. I think from Ega, then was also a use of a lot of visual effects. Bahubali was a lot of visual effects per set pieces, and I think in RRR, a lot of action and visual effects and set pieces were created with a lot of craftsmanship, imagination, and craftsmanship, and something that the international audience and international critics have been able to appreciate. So I think there is a gradual progression of both filmmaking as a director, as an author, and in his penetration into the global markets.
Now, I think the films that Arka Media decides to produce are very interesting. I mean, it's a very diverse range. They've also done a lot of comedy films, action films also that you've produced. What do you look out for in a script when you decide to zero in on a script?
Well, so there are two things. We are not a prolific makers of films. We choose the films that we make, and we make very select films. We don't make a lot of films. But what we really look for, one, is the relationship with the director, that we have a good rapport, and we feel that we can have a relationship that is a professional relationship where we can contribute something, bring in something to the project as producers, and not just finances, but something, whether it is in marketing or in execution of the project, or building new markets. That is something that we look forward to in something, in some way, that we can contribute to the project. And two, is whether the slip, and more importantly, whether the script is something that we like, and whether that is something that we want to put our name on. And yeah, if it is it's not genre specific, but it is more, if we feel we connect with it, and we say that, yeah, this is a good script, and we would like to put our name on it, then that's when we really go for it.
Right. And I'm sure there must be a huge significant difference, I think, after Bahubali released. What was life like before Bahubali actually for you, and how has it changed since then?
Mm, Actually, not much. Before Bahubali, we were, so to say, we were considered as small producers, and we were under the radar. But post Bahubali, obviously, we are much more noticeable, and we do get a lot more options in terms of scripts that come to us, or talent that would like to work with us, because of the what we have contributed to in terms of Bahubali. So there is a definite respect for us as producers after Bahubali, as somebody who will bring something to the table, and as a producers. So that is definitely there. So I think that's the main thing, that we've been noticed and respected as producers post Bahubali.
Right. I think when Bahubali had happened, I would love to know some anecdotes actually about your experience of working on the film. I'm sure you've been asked this several times in several interviews, but we've never had the chance to actually interact one on one. I mean, if there is something which you vividly remember, which perhaps has not been told yet about Bahubali, what would be that one story?
I think something that's, I mean, I don't know, this has been told multiple times, but that is the most challenging, and of course, the toughest was the release of Bahubali 1, because it was basically trying to do much more than what I mean, we are trying to do something bigger than what we anticipated. And the release of Bahubali 1, the national release, and the success of Bahubali 1 was very crucial for all of us, and both financially and credibility wise. And so there was a lot at stake in terms of at the time of release of Bahubali 1, financially and in terms of reputation. And I think the early reports that came in, especially from the Telugu film industry, were not very encouraging. And the early fan shows, and which we do very early in the mornings, and the word of mouth that came out was that it was a disaster, and that was a big blow to our confidence, and it really took a lot to stay calm and weather it out. And luckily, by evening, things started changing. The word of mouth started changing once the family audience and the general audience started coming in. And the next couple of days over the weekend, things settled, and of course, it took off after that. But the Hindi was always good from day one. From the previous night previews, the audience, the word of mouth was always good. But Telugu, there was a certain mixed word of mouth, so that was very, very tough for us to initially deal with. I think that is something that we always remember, because movies can go just they're on the fine edge. It can go this way, that way, very easily. So
Sure,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to pick your brains a little bit here because I
Yeah.
know it's obviously probably difficult for you to answer, but why is it that you think that it was being touted as a disaster? I mean, Telugu films have always been quite mass oriented, do you think?
So I think the thing was, when you put Rajamouli and Prabhas in the film as director and actor. There was an early film. The previous film was Chhatrapati, which was a commercial blockbuster, and there's always a certain heroism um, and an expectation from the audience, especially the fans, hardcore fans. They've already made certain assumptions in their mind on how it's going to be and what it's going to be and what they're expecting when they walk into the theater and watch that film on the first day or the early morning shows, and. I think Bahubali, in a way, although being commercial and heroic, it was not the traditional commercial uh, Telugu film that you would expect. It was not solely driven by the hero himself. There were other strong characters, and the hero plays multiple. There are places where he is not at the top of the thing. He's not always, playing heroic things. So there were things that moved away from it, and then also there was no, what we call in Telugu commercial cinema, the comedy track, which was completely, there was no comedy at all. So earlier the commercial formula was, you would have fights, you would have some comedy humor, and you would have songs.
Right.
Here songs are also very driving the story, not the regular commercial songs that you would imagine. The fights were also differently choreographed, and I think it took them a bit, it took them off guard, and
Mhm.
it took them a while to just sink in, and it just was something that was just completely different from what they were expecting. So I think that was, and it kind of threw them off. So
Right.
that was why the fans really got disappointed. But once the family audience started coming in, and they was watching it more as a film, more than the hero or the fan, as more than a fan, I think then they started liking it, and then people started going back.
This is very interesting because I find this pan India release
Mhm.
wonderful because I think number one, it unites us all.
Mhm.
Because now people don't recognize it as North South, it's Indian cinema, which is great.
Right.
But when it comes to helming films, I guess that are pan Indian or marketing films that are have a pan Indian appeal,
Mhm.
how pivotal is it that the content made is palatable to that audience? Do you feel like that's a conscious decision, like a director has to keep in mind now as well, of how it will appeal to all different languages of different regions?
So I would look at it the other way, that, see, trying to satisfy multiple audiences is a very difficult, and in the process we would probably lose the core of the film itself, the core essence of the film that we set out to do. So I would, what I believe in, and what most directors do, I think, believe in, is there are certain films which will work uh, across the country, could work across the country. There are certain kind of stories, and certain kind of stories which might only be for a very regional audience. So trying to make every story appeal to a larger audience, I think would not be recommend it. I wouldn't recommend that. But if you see a potential that you're making something for your core audience, for the way you want it, but at the same time you see that there is a potential for this to be interesting for a larger audience, I would say go for it. But I wouldn't do something extra just to appeal to somebody else. Maybe casting to some elements where I can bring in some additional cast from other industries so that they become familiar with it. But I won't go as far as changing the story or making it different to appeal to a specific audience. Because then you will be losing both the local audience and the other audience.
Mm-hmm. Now, I asked you earlier about the appeal of RRR, the global appeal of it. Now,
Mhm.
listen, I love the film. I think it's great. I think it tackles very important topics of colonialism that we faced,
Mhm.
and I think it provides that, and it also does justice to our of dharmic sort of justice as well. Like, it sort of pays homage to our cultural roots as well, which I think is wonderful.
Mhm.
But sir, I always wonder, do you feel even now, even though India's economy is thriving and we're doing so well for ourselves, do
Mhm.
you feel that there is a part of us that are still uh, fighting the hangover of colonialism? Do you think that we're still maybe seeking validation from the West? Do you feel that?
In terms of the film itself or in general, are you talking about?
Could be the film and in general as well.
So I think there are people, there are sections of the society that do take Western validation as a better approval or a better qualification or a better justification, as opposed to just being from India. But but that is there, I guess. That'll always be there, at least for some time. I think the newer generation, the younger generation, is much more free and much more independent of all that. But I think in the context of RRR being appreciated in the West and winning awards, for me, it's not about their appreciation or their acceptance. For me, it is about or that is I mean, their acceptance or their appreciation is not a stamp of what we do. For me, it is more about a film getting a bigger market. For me, if it wins a Golden Globe, it has a possibility for the film to be seen by some more people, and that translates directly to a bigger market eventually. Whether it is directly to this film or the next films that come out. The next Rajamouli film will obviously have a better positioning in the global markets. And with that, if somebody else can take advantage of that and can position their films because of this acceptance and this recognition, they're able to gain from that. And for me, I look at it as what can we gain from it, and what can be gained in the process. And I think there's a lot to gain when our films are recognized or awarded, and it is a sign of um, for other people. Foreign audience don't know, they can't relate to Indian films, but when they say that it's nominated for an Oscar or won a Golden Globe, we always go and say, what are the winners, what are the nominees? We go and see these films. As whether it's an Iranian film or if it's a German film or a French film, if it wins an award, a Cannes Festival or the prestigious awards or the prestigious festivals or the awards, we go and watch them,
Yep.
and that opens up the market for us. And the same thing is going to happen when we win an award in many of these places. So it's and they will watch our films, and that's my goal. That's my thing.
Right. Yeah. Very, very well answered, actually, because I feel like it's a fine balance, isn't it? It's a very fine line, I
Mhm.
think, because what you're saying here, it's more the opportunity side of it, of
Yes.
bringing back and boosting in hindsight of boosting the economy is
Yeah.
basically is what you're saying, right?
I mean, people, it's not anything, whether being, it's for me, whether it is loved in India or loved abroad, it's the same thing. It's accepted in India and accepted abroad is the same thing. Just because it's accepted abroad doesn't make it any better for me. The only thing that's better is that I have a bigger market.
Fair
Because
enough.
I know my market already exists here. Now I'm able to. It's the same for Baahubali, right? When Baahubali happened, it was accepted in Hindi. It's not that that doesn't make it a better film because it was accepted by Hindi audience, but it makes it a bigger market and a bigger audience. And now I can play a bigger game. So that's.
Yeah, yeah, very. I mean, I totally understand exactly where you're coming from. From a perspective of a producer, for sure. South is now becoming the new mainstream. It's becoming the newcomer, for which I think is lovely because I feel for a while I do feel South films were perhaps sidelined a little bit. You know, they were not given that prominence, and they've managed to find that audience. They've managed to capture that audience and usko pakad ke rakha hai over the years. They've not been swayed by any other influences. But sir, at a time like this, when obviously there are so much attention given to South films now, how tough is it for, I think, you as producers and perhaps the industry generally to keep hold of that root, to keep hold of that humility that you've maintained over these years? How tough is it not to get swayed by the glories and the treasures of the world?
I think it's I see there are both pluses and negatives. So once the market opens because of Baahubali and then KGF and then Pushpa and RRR, of course, all these films have doing well, have consolidated and made it more like now that we are one industry. It's the Indian film industry, and the plus side is the markets have opened up. The mark the what you can realize from the theatrical box office has improved, which means that you can spend more money and bigger budgets can be allocated for the films, which means the quality of production is increasing. So the case in point, RRR today, the visual effects, the what I'm really happy about is the technical side of the film is being appreciated in the West. So at a fraction of the cost that they would spend, the visual effects and whether it is sound design, visual effects, the cinematography, any of the music, all of these are being appreciated for the technical qualities, right? They were the trendsetters, they are the pioneers, they've always held a very high uh, bar, and and we are able to achieve those bars, hit those bars with our limited. I mean, there's still big budgets here, but it's still a very small component. If you look at it from an international perspective, even RRR, whether it's 400 crores, is still small compared to what they would spend to get those. So I think the technical quality has of our films has substantially improved, and there is, if you really want it, we can hit those bars, high bars. So that is the plus side of having a thing. But the thing is to be very, like you said, that we need to be grounded and aware of what is it that we're doing, not to get carried away by it. When we have bigger budgets, we need to spend it in the right places, on the right things, which show on the screen, which will reflect on the screen, and which will make that product or the script bigger, better, and more whatever attractive for the audience to come to the theaters, right? And there is a possibility in that when you have that kind of money, that because of lack of experience, or just unable to handle the project of that scale, because we are not used to producing, we don't have experience in producing that kind of scale all the time, we could lose sight and we could end up making products that are subpar. And I think that's where we need to really be grounded, be conscious, and spend that money that we are able to spend now effectively and productively. I think that's the.
I think the demand for such films like an Bahubali RR, even Brahmastra as well, which I really loved as well. I mean, the demand for that will always be there. I've noticed that. Do you think the pandemic actually has made the demand for escapist films more or less because people are even a bit more veering towards the realistic side of films as well, if we see on the Netflix and the OTT side of things?
So I think it's the pandemic has kind of made a clear line between the kind of films audience and people want to watch at home and want to step out. So the kind of realistic cinema, art cinema, or slice of life, um, um, those are generally, I'm not generalizing, but exceptions in every scenario. But by and large, people are more comfortable watching those kind of films at home. in the person in the set
Comfort of their homes.
in the
Yeah.
comfort of their homes. Even most of the times it might be even just me watching in front of my computer screen and intimately relating to a small film, right? Or a personal film, or a very real or art slice of life film. But there are films that the audience wants to go out and see, and those are where you need a communal experience, where I want to watch it with a few of my friends in a collective. It's like going to a game and watching a cricket game in the stadium versus watching it at home, right? So I want to be out there, be in the midst of 100 or 200 people, and watch it as a collective audience. And those are the films that are attracting or drawing audience to the theaters. Those are obviously the films with scale. In South, in Telugu, the comedies work, even small comedies, which work collectively. When you watch it collectively, the humor rubs off, and we all laugh and smile together. Or the wow factor of movies that you want to, those are the films with a communal scale, spectacle, or a kind of community expression, that you want to watch among a few other people. I think those are the ones that are really driving people to the theater today. So there is, I think, more or less a very clear line, that the people want to, yeah.
It's interesting you said comedies as well, because even last year, Sita Ramam, for example, I
Yeah,
mean, that did very good business as well at the
right.
box office. And how has the pandemic impacted you actually as a producer? I would love to know how you've been coping with it.
So for us, yeah, like everybody else, it's been a kind of a setback where, for 2 years we were kind of pulled back on. I mean, we had earlier after Babli also we were a little quiet, but and then as we were about to step out, the pandemic hit us, and then we pulled back again. And so it put us back by a couple of years in terms of projects that we would have liked to do. So, but now again we are just building the momentum, and hopefully this year and next year we'll be able to mount some good projects. So it did pull us back a little. But coming back to the thing, yeah, the like I would like to give a case in point is Kantara.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Mm.
it's not a big budget film, but it's a cinematic film. It's a cinematic experience, and audience wanted to go and see it in theaters. In fact, people who have seen it at home are all disappointed, and there's like we didn't, it didn't, it wasn't what we expected. But if you people who went to theater and watched it with other people as on a screen, large screen, it was a brilliant cinematic experience. And it was not a high budget. So what I mean to say is, it need not be high budget, but it needs to be a proper cinematic experience. Yeah.
And it's very interesting again, because I was watching, I think this conference with Anupam sir and Rishabh Shetty, together, and I think what Anupam Kher sir had said again was about that Indianness coming back,
Mhm.
in films. We were talking about maintaining humility, but I think I'm going to talk about the cultural aspect here because I think this is very important as well.
Mhm.
How pivotal is it, I think, for Indian movies nowadays, especially what we see from RRR too,
Mhm.
is it to actually pay homage to our cultural roots and being unapologetic about it? Because, if, for example, if I say, like, oh, before there was a bit of a shame or a stigma attached to
Mhm.
showing our cultural stuff, but now there seems to be that confidence coming in. Would
Yeah.
you also agree with that?
Yes, I completely agree with it. I think Indianness in every which way, not just in movies, but whether it is music or whether it is, the private label songs. People are very comfortable with being, whether it's listening to a Telugu song, a Tamil song, and they're actually prefer to listen to a Telugu song or a Tamil song as opposed to Western song. Like you go to pubs today in Hyderabad or any of these things, and there are more people wanting Telugu songs, Hindi songs, or even more regional Telangana dialect songs. The more local it gets, the more the people are enjoying it more. So there is definitely a lot of confidence and an assurance to appreciate and enjoy what is local. So,
Mm.
so earlier, at least in my generation, when we were growing up, and subsequently also, there was always this aspiration of Western aspiration to be Western, to wear Western clothes, to be seen. That now has become a common thing. I mean,
True.
Nike shoes in nowadays, to get a Nike shoe, we had to call an uncle and somewhere and beg him and ask him, and then they would bring or not, and whatever they brought, we had to wear it. And today, that is given, whether it's food, movies, or as it's no longer as aspirational for a large section of a bigger section of the audience. But so that, and also the younger generations, like I said, want to experience what is in culturally and locally uh, indigenous to the thing. And I think Kantara is a great case in point, where they took a small local ritual and spun a story around it and made it a cinematic experience, and people loved it. So
It's so true. And it's like, even again, as a Hindu myself, before there used to be this hesitance of me, saying it. We were very hesitant in हम अपने आप को accept करने में बहुत ज्यादा कतराते थे. We used to feel very hesitant, but now it's like, yeah, it's almost very cool to just say who we are and embrace our identities. And I think it's good
absolutely.
that we have great examples like this, that films that do that, but not in a way which is making a statement. It's just
Mhm.
there to entertain and engage. And I think that's the power of cinema, isn't it? To do
Absolutely.
that. I know,
Absolutely.
I totally agree, and I think you were talking about projects as well of Arca, and I think one thing that I've been very eager to know about, actually, because at one point this was like the biggest news, but then suddenly radio silence.
Mhm.
Bahubali, the series on Netflix.
Mhm.
What is happening with that? Because
So
we've been waiting for this since 2019,
I know,
2018.
I know. So we did have some setbacks. We did start it, and we did have some setback on that. And then the COVID came, and then it threw completely all our plans in that a little off. So let's see. We still have some hope. We It's right now not. I mean, it's in the cold storage. Let's see what happens in the future.
Oh no. Oh, well, I hope that you get a chance to revive that. I mean, that would be really great. What other projects can we actually look forward to from Arca going forward?
Yeah. We are been very active in the OTT, the streaming side, where we've been doing some amazing the projects have been under development and will go into production with all the major streaming platforms. We've been doing quite a few stories. I think those will come out soon. I mean, start rolling out soon. And we have also lined up a few scripts that we are very excited about, from medium to big budget. And I think maybe hopefully, if everything works out in the next few months, we might be announcing some films.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Well, I'm gonna definitely be on your case to cover those, I
Sure.
think, when that
Absolutely.
happens.
Absolutely.
But I think because of again, on a final way
Yeah.
to conclude our chat, because we began with RRR, and just to conclude
Yeah.
on that, in terms of the scripts and stuff and the contents coming forward, what style of films now do you personally, or are you personally really keen on backing as well at the back of RRR success?
One is something that we would, not immediately, but at least sometime in the future. Some things, this now we are looking at stories that can not only travel, Indian stories set it locally, but some those stories that can travel not only across India but across the world. Is there a possibility? That's something that is exciting, where we are looking for stories that can rooted in India, but that would have the possibility to travel the world. That's something that is personally exciting for me. But that those will take some time to happen. But other than that, we are looking at broadly in the big budget space. It'll be a spectacle films, and in the smaller things, they're more of action comedies and good entertainers kind of
Hmm.
thing.
And again, because of Bahubali also was like you collaborated with Dharma Productions for
Yeah,
Bahubali as well for the Hindi release.
right.
How advantageous was that actually for you? And do you think that's something you would like to perhaps consider as well going forward?
Yeah, for Bahubali, it was really good because we really needed because we were just coming from South with no presence in the Hindi, and we were the first guys to explore the Hindi market in such a big way. And we felt that we needed a strong partner who both so it was both Dharma and Anil Tadani's AA Films as a strong distribution partner and as a presenting partner in terms of Dharma. And I think we benefited immensely from that. And I would give full credit to Karan and his team, and also Anil Tadani for what we were able to achieve. And going forward, I think it is a case by case basis, and I think now the market has much more changed dramatically, especially with the successes of KGF and Pushpa. Like I said, all the South films doing well. It's now the acceptance from South has become easier. So the need for a partner for the same reason as what we needed for Bahubali is no longer there. But there is always possibilities to collaborate. Now it's whether bringing an actor from South and an actor from North and able to mount a project, that kind of or collaborating on a script which brings synergies together for a South North strengths together. So there are always possibilities to collaborate, and I think I would definitely any time would prefer to collaborate with other production houses or studios. Yeah.
Sure. Well, that would be wonderful. And I think we've always had that history of collaborations. I don't know why that stopped for a while, but I'm glad that it's kind of picked up again. And
Yeah.
hopefully going forward, it will definitely cause for some great cinemas to be produced. But Shobusa, it's been such a pleasure to have you on Filmy Shilmi. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you have such a busy schedule, but thank you so much for taking some time out to join me and to chat with me. It was lovely.
Thanks, Anuj. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.